Today with me, I have Martin Mahler, myself, and Alexander Thor. And we're very, very excited to be speaking to you about Astrato, our newest and freshest product for the first time outside of the world of Click. Here I am. Hope you can see me straight from London. And with this, I'll get started. Get excited. Ladies and gentlemen, non-binaries, it's to my utmost pride and sincerity that I present this unveiling as a living testament and recollection of history in the making during our generation. Astrato, the big unveiling. The agenda today is going to be interesting. It's going to be a mix between stories, ambition, vision, and product demos. So we're going to start with an introduction to give you a little bit of a history where we're coming from, a product demo, live in action. Why now? Why is Astrato the right thing from Alex Thor? And then we're going to close up with roadmap. And I think by that time, you'll have a lot of questions that you'll be firing off to us. So with this, take your pencil out. We have a Q&A within Zoom, so do ask the questions right away. Our team may answer them directly, but we'll pick them up at the end. Don't be shy, be part of this experience. So starting off, today we have an interesting crowd. We have Vizlib customers, clickers, but we also have customers from Snowflake and people who are not familiar with our existing business. So for those of you who have never heard about Vizlib before, we are a relatively big company based in London. We have 140 employees, and we serve nearly 1,000 customers today across the globe. So what we do is data visualization and data analytics. And one thing that we have seen, and I find the most exciting generally in this industry, is that we serve all various kind of customers, small customers, big customers, enterprise customers, different industries, from pharma to healthcare to telecommunication, and more importantly, also different countries, from China to US, Latin America, Sweden, Poland. And the thing is that I realized is that there's one thing that unites all industries, all cultures, and all countries is the language of data that we all speak. And this is where we come. So a bit about us and about Vizlib and why Astrato. So most of you, and for those who have been familiar with our extensions on top of Click, we have been working on this for a very long time, but our ambition has always been bigger and greater and to serve our customers in the best possible way, and not only serve our customers, but also as many customers as we possibly can. So with this, we do not sit comfortable where we are, but we will evolve, and we are taking off, and we are evolving. And for the very first time in our history of our organization, we are now offering a product outside of Click on top of Snowflake. So a bit of background with this, we have mastered the data analytics and visualization game on top of Click. We have built over 33 visualizations components that elevate and increase the capabilities of native Click, but also elevate the analytics experience of your everyday user and customer. From visualizations to interactions to self-service reporting, and more importantly, also lately, write back, editing data, commenting data, without leaving your data analytics app, closing effectively the analytics loop. That very successful experience we want to take now, and we have evolved into a standalone product that sits in the cloud and ultimately will be able to serve all customers that are using Snowflake as a data storage. So we're basically replicating the experience and the visualization success on Click, and we are now expanding, and we're going to new customers, to customers who don't have Click, to new users and new use cases. So the story is we're repeating our success, and we're expanding, and we're very, very excited about that. So a bit of a glance of what Vizlib does. We do dashboards, analytics, world-class, better than anybody else. Not just visualizations, but the whole interaction with visualization. The whole concept, our communicating complex information in an easy digestible way, but in a nicely presented format that your everyday user can consume and interact with, your everyday citizen developer can create. And the same experience we will replicate on top of Astrato. So it doesn't really matter what the technology is. We are here to offer an premium experience on top of data and data visualizations. So in short, what we do is we turn line charts, charts like these effectively into powerful and meaningful stories. So for those to reiterate, who have known us for a long while, and for those who get to know us for the very first time today, our mission is to make our customers' data talk and move data to the heart of every business conversation there is. So as of today, we are unveiling that we have developed a new product, the biggest product to date within our VizLib history, Astrato, that sits in the cloud, is based on SQL, and will basically visualize and report data that comes directly from Snowflake. Now, before I go and excite you everyone about Astrato, there's a couple of things I want to get straight. For our customers and for Qlik as well, we are not competing with Qlik. We are creating new use cases, a new solution that goes beyond Qlik on different customers, different user bases, and more importantly, entirely different use cases. So this is not a race. This is not a race. This is generally us expanding and creating value to our existing and our future customer base. Second of all, if you are a very delighted and happy VizLib customer, you have nothing to worry about. We are a very heavily invested R&D company, a product company. Our investment in R&D is big and it will remain big, be it on Qlik or be it on Astrato. We have just have a benefit that we can fund both of them. So with this, I'm going over into Astrato itself and to our journey. So I showed the visualizations, right, which we will replicate and we know we can do in a world-class manner to delight users and ultimately customers. But the one thing that Astrato will do differently, not just in Qlik, but any other analytics and visualization tool on the market, is that we play the data where it lives. In technical terms, live query or die query. Now, what does this mean and why? It's undeniable. Data is moving to the cloud. We're talking about cost saving. We're talking about speed. We're talking about agility. We're talking about security in the cloud that is much, much more better than what we have in our on-premise environment that we have to maintain at a high cost. So that's an undeniable trend. But with data moving to the cloud, there are a couple of things we have to keep in mind. Moving data comes at a cost and complexity. And whilst it's impossible to not move data into the cloud, there are ways to prevent to move data from one cloud to another cloud. Moving data generally is a bad idea. And especially when you move data outside of your premises in a public space, that comes at cost and complexity. With data extracts, you lose security and governance. Your data copies are going from one system to another, and you lose traceability. You lose the security that a powerful Snowflake provides to you. With data extracts, you lose the performance and scale that the cloud gives you. With rising data sizes, that is the brilliance of the cloud, that you can host and you can scale with as much data as you want to record and capture as much data as you need. But if you move that data from one system to another, you suffer. So you're then back to limiting the data sizes, which is, in my view, exactly the opposite what cloud enables you to do. With data extracts, data becomes static. Real time is more important than ever. People want up-to-date information, and not just up-to-date information, they want to make sure there are not different copies flying around. Single source of truth in the data warehouse in real time. That's what playing the data enables. So with this, that's our big differentiator with Astrato. Play the data where it lives, in the warehouse, on the fly, but visualize it with the end user. So what we've done is we've built a SQL-based analytics layer in the cloud, which plays the data where it lives. That's enough on slides. I hope I got you excited. So with this, I'll move over and I will show you, what we do best, the product live in action. I'm showing you a dashboard that has been created directly in Astrato on top of Snowflake. But you know what? No. Our ambition and our success is about getting started easily. So I'm going to show you actually how easy it is to create something like this from scratch. So it all starts, your journey in Astrato starts with a tenant that you log into. And this is hosted on our side. You don't have to host Astrato, we're hosting it. You can log in with any kind of your social providers or even your enterprise authentication providers such as SAML, single sign-on, Okta. All of those are supported because not just they are secure, but they also enable one-click login. That's all it takes, and I'm directly in the system, which is my Astrato demo tenant. Sorry, I didn't click it. So once I land in my Astrato demo tenant, you will see it's actually very, very simple. We've done this on purpose. We don't want to introduce a new specific Astrato landing page. You want to reintroduce familiarity. If you come from another tool, you can use this as well, because nobody will only be using one tool. So familiarity is a key thing. You see our workbooks, which are neatly organized here in one single view. You can organize them into folders if you want to segregate the security or apply authorization. But what's important here is the zero to hero experience. So let me show you. So it all starts with new data. You click here, and you have a couple of data sources to choose from. I know I'm talking about Snowflake, but also Google Sheet is something we've enabled because it enables that fast prototyping, that quickly adding the data to a spreadsheet to quickly visualize something. That is possible as well. But in this example, Snowflake is where all the power lies. So I'm going to show you that part. For those of you who have used Snowflake before, this is a familiar screen. Nothing crazy. It's exactly the same way you would log in from any other system that uses Snowflake. Have your credentials, add your account URL, but that's as much as it is. You test the connection, and we are live. We can now browse all my databases in my tenant. As a matter of fact, I can choose which database I want to analyze. You also have some advanced options, such as roles for certain permissions or even data warehouses if you want to segregate the compute. Whoever uses this workbook should not consume all my credits, so you can segregate it quite nicely. Call it demo live. Onwards, we connect, and literally with just, I think, 2 clicks and the credentials, I am now in my Snowflake system, and I can access all my Snowflake data. All the Snowflake data that I am allowed to access, that Snowflake gives me as a possibility to access. So you can browse here for your tables, you can browse for your schemas, you can actually look at what fields there are within there. You can actually go as far as quickly check with the data preview to see if the data that you're picking is the one that actually has the values that you're looking for. Just like a shopping cart approach, just as simple as going to Tesco's or to Walmart in the US, you can pick your dimensions and fields, you can pick your tables, and you can add everything that you want to analyze in your workbook. Onward, pick my data, and now just before I go into my workbook and start creating charts, there's always that one last mile edit, that one last mile change that I want to do. So this is a define section. You can easily come here and you can rename fields, alias, and give them something more business friendly. So whoever uses the dashboard, the front end, has a field that is much more, friendly rather than technical, So you can rename fields. You can also add measures. So in this case, I'm going to use sales because that's something I'll be reusing across a couple of visualizations. So I can prefix the aggregation. I can choose the fields that this will be exposed to. And I can also include formatting and so on. So this is now my measure. Now, I'm not going to go through all the settings, but one thing is kind of important because for any kind of analytics that you wish to do, you want to see data across different tables. And this is where joins come into play. Joins in SQL, but also joins here in Astrato. Because what you can do here is you can define how the tables link with each other. You can pick the right field names, and they don't even have to have the same name. So there's no restriction other than they need to have the same data type. So you see here, I've connected 2 tables very quickly, and I'm going to do the last one as well. If you have 3 tables, you need at least 2 joins to connect them meaningfully. But the power here is actually that I've created 2 joins on top of my data without writing any single line of SQL code. Just as easy as ABC. Everyone can do it. And we're working, and that'll be released join suggestions and some more nice visual representation to see what it actually is, how the tables are linked. If you still need help, not a problem. Click here and reach out to our support team that will help you right where you are directly in the tool and assist you, or you can see some articles. Moving on. So selected my data, define my joins. I'm creating my workbook now. And here we come to a very, very familiar already experience with a canvas that allows you to choose from a list of very rich visualizations that have proven themselves in the visible world that we know and we are building, and that you can easily add into the canvas. You can drag and you can position it anywhere you want. Free floating, pixel perfect positioning. You can actually, it behaves like PowerPoint, but with data. Now, if you go on the right-hand side, you'll see the dimensions and the fields that are exposed from the data view I've just added to my mix. So you can quickly choose one of them, go to sales, which is my measure, and here's where the magic happens. From data in Snowflake to meaningful analysis in a dashboard in less than a minute, in real time reported from Snowflake. That is unique with Astrato that nobody else does, because we do not load data, we play the data where it is. Continuing my journey, I can add more charts, so I can literally create a rich dashboard. We have those data previews here, so you can see some data while you design your dashboard. It's not empty until you add your data. So in this case, I will add, I'm looking sales by product, so I may want to expand this by sales itself. So step by step, you have the ability to add a dashboard with very little effort required and no SQL writing needed in a no-code, brilliant, user-friendly way. So the interesting thing here is I'm going to add like a line chart so we can also see sales, how they perform over time. And voila, here we go. I have a more interesting analytics dashboard view created. Now, that's static. And what makes BI powerful is the ability to filter, to interact, to drill down. So this is where we have controls, a filter objects, and many more objects that we'll be adding that will make the whole guided analytics experience much more powerful, is where you can add, I'll reselect country here as well, into the mix. And now you generally have a dashboard that is interactive, that you can use filtering, reducing, and making selections on the fly in lightning speed, because Snowflake is so fast that we receive the data immediately and we can visualize it. True power of scale of the cloud combined with a world-class technology on the back of it. So the interesting thing is, again, we have to find a data view, which may, be a bit scary because I'm adding logic there, but it's actually not. Everything that is visualized here on the screen, including the filters, if I want to, is actually here. If you go right-click on any of those charts, you can see the data query insights. So over here, you can see which queries have been generated for you. I know this is scary. That's why we make Astrato so simple, so you don't have to do that. And you can then not just look at the query and the filters are being applied, but actually, if you right-click on this, you can look at the query insights, and it can take you directly back into Snowflake. Because no matter how much charts we have in Astrato, no matter how many sheets, how many workbooks, all the calculations, all the compute is centralized in Snowflake, which makes it heaven to govern and heaven to maintain. So see, here it is where it's coming from. And if you wanted to inspect the performance, you can also go much deeper. And this goes, this is a bit technical, but you see you can go as far as you want, because now this is, in the realms of Snowflake. Not only that, but now comes the interesting bit. Martin, fine, everybody can demo something with sum of sales and a dimension, these are easy, but my calculations are much more complex. We're working on a lot of these things, like the ability to nest measures, to fill in chart filters, also selections in chart, as well as brushing and linking those things, not just yet in production, but on development. But the thing is, if there's something we cannot offer you in terms of UI, of a simple way to apply some interesting calculation logic, you can still come here and you have the ability to add your own query. So if you're comfortable with writing SQL, or somebody has written that SQL for you, you can easily just add the query into the mix and save it. And then just appears like just another table in your data view that you can then reuse across your workbook like any other table. So you see here, this is the data that I was actually exporting from the pie chart. So back to the workbook. Now, one thing that has always been important for me, and I've been a BI developer for many, many, many years, hands-on, been working on lots of projects. I want to have, what I like about PowerPoint is that you have the full control over how you create and how you visualize and how you perfectionate your dashboard. So I don't like limitations. Now, this tool looks simple to me, Martin, but can I do everything I want to achieve? Well, it's up to you, really. So inspired from a Vizlib KPI designer in the Vizlib world, again, we're taking the best of both worlds and including them in both. You actually can choose different kind of icons. You can use shapes, and you can overlay objects over another to actually add more information into a chart. So if you're a creative designer or a developer, you can actually do more than just visualizing data. You can actually use icons and add a text and highlight some annotation here and say, this is an outlier, for example. And not only that, you can also add individual numbers that are then driven, that you can point anywhere you want on the screen. Again, you can reuse some of them that you have from before or more. So not only that, so you can overlay objects to create very, very smart KPIs. If you want to, you can also select them together. And when you select them together, you can also group them. So now this behaves like just one object that you can move around, that you can link, that you can embed as well in the near future to another system or copy it. So that is the flexibility that we offer, including smart resizing, responsive, and so on. Now, this dashboard is nothing to be proud of. I'm not a designer, actually. I understand data, understand visualize, communicate data, but I'm not good at making looking good. So you can actually, if you want to create a new sheet, you can choose from one of our 16 layouts and more incoming that allow you to just select one of those as a template that you can click on. It will generate the charts for you. And then me as a user, all I got to do is just come in here, just replace my dimension and measure with what I see here. And I have a well-designed dashboard being created for me. That is where we're going. We want to make it very powerful, but simple enough for somebody to be able to create something very powerful on their own. So that's the creator experience. So with this, you'll be able to have a lot of interesting dashboards, such as this sales dashboard, where you can select data and it's very fast. Speed is one of our key criteria, and this is why we chose Snowflake, because it is fast, it is responsive, and can create some really, really meaningful analysis on top of that in real time on any data sizes. Not only that, actually, just to find an interesting use case, you can also visualize your Snowflake consumption. So Snowflake is very good at utilizing at providing utilization metrics. So this is actually my Snowflake consumption. So if I come here in my schema and I do select the data I just analyzed, my sales schema, I can select this and I can clearly see who else was using that data, how often, how much, even to the detail, how many credits it actually cost. So this is actually the power of real time and analytics and creator experience. And some of you may say, and I think I see in the chat, like, but how many rows of data do I see here? Of course, it's fast if it's slow, if there's small sizes. My answer to this is, as Astrato, we don't care. We serve any data, small data, big data. If Snowflake is able to compute to us, and they're a scalable data cloud, then we'll just visualize it. As a matter of fact, if you come here, we've created a nice little dashboard for you. Let me just refresh it. Here we go. A dashboard that is actually part of the example Snowflake data. I'm not sure if one thing I want to highlight here is that we have 6 billion rows. This is a dashboard on a data set that is 6 billion rows, huge. And for me, as a user, we don't care. We make selections, and if it's cached and if Snowflake fast in computing, then I have a sub-second analytics peak, and I can go from 6 billion rows, helicopter aggregated view, down to the supplier level to, I think, what we'll see now is 145 rows. So this is the power of Snowflake. This is the power of playing the data where it lives, leave the data where the compute is, and we do what we do best, which is visualizations, dashboards, analytics, and right back in a world-class matter. So why this matters and why this is an important trend and why now, I'm handing over to Alex, who will tell you more about why history repeats and what this means.
Thank you, Martin. Let's see if I can get this show on the road. And here we go. That looks okay to everybody? Give me a thumbs up, Martin. Thank you. Let's see if I can match your energy today. So hi, everybody. My name is Alexander Thor. I head up the product management department here at Bislip, which is building Astrato. And I spent the last 15 years within software, and out of those 15, 10 within business intelligence. And that basically means I'm a dinosaur within tech at this stage. And that's why I try to compensate, dressing like a teenager with hats and so on and so forth. But I won't talk too much about that today, but we'll talk a little bit of history. As you get older, history becomes more and more important. So we'll look a little bit at that. So we've sat down and we built a new product, Astrato, right? And the first question that everybody should ask yourself is, but why, right? Why would we do this in 2020, 2021? Type in a Google search and you'll find millions of different visualization tools and millions of different data analytics tools. Why do we need one more, right? So this is the question that we're going to try to answer today, like why we're actually doing what we're doing. And for me, it becomes interesting to understand sort of where we are right now in the present. We also need to understand the time leading up to the present. So, a very nice quote from Carl Sagan. And in the same way as it is with science, it is kind of with the decisions taken over time. Science and our understanding of science and space changes over time, and so does sort of technology choices and software. So we'll try to kind of understand in which realm certain choices were made and how they build upon each other, and that kind of leads us up to date. So first of all, history kind of repeats itself. History always comes and goes in different cycles. What you see today was probably popular 10, 15 years ago, which is definitely true for fashion, for example. So if you go back to the early 90s and you look at Princess Di and the future King of England on the left there, you can sort of see the runways, which are showing right now on the right here. And you see that it's coming back, right? It's the same type of style 30 years later. So if you haven't updated your wardrobe in the last 30 years, kind of like me, all of a sudden you're cool again, or at least modern, but perhaps not up to date. And the same goes for tech. So if we backtrack almost back to like the late 80s, mid 90s, we sort of saw the rise of the big, the data warehouse movement and cubes technologies and OLAP cubes. And these were kind of coming onto the scene. And they were driven for a few different reasons, essentially. So the rise of the internet came along, meant that the world was just more and more connected, which also meant that competition went up and up and up. So to be able to compete in a more connected world, you needed to make better and more informed decisions. So data analysis kind of came onto the field. And at the same time, you bought more and more software that you probably didn't even have before. You bought CRM systems, you bought HR systems, you bought marketing tools, and so on and so forth. And all these tools came with their own little database and with their own little data storage that lived in its own little silo. And as you wanted to compete more efficiently, you wanted to be able to take all this data, put it in one place to make better and more informed decisions. So you wanted to take sort of the fragmented application layer and consolidate that down. And this became very, very popular. We saw big vendors like SAP, IBM, Oracle, all building platform plays on top of this space. And it worked out really well for initially, and also for the next almost 10 to 15 years. And then we can kind of jump forward a little bit into history. And now we're up to sort of 2005, 2007 almost. Data warehousing has been successful for a large period of time. But then we're kind of seeing the surge of the analytical tools coming into the market. And this would be tools like Tableau. It would be tools like MicroStrategy or Spotfire from TIBCO and so on and so forth. And they came onto the field, quite rapidly. They grew almost instantaneously overnight. Became very, very successful for a few different reasons. They sort of gave a performance boost to the data warehouses. So the data warehouses, when they started out, was fairly performant. But as time goes, you accumulate more and more data, and the data warehouses were starting to slow down. They weren't really built to scale up. So scaling up a data warehousing solution was a fairly costly exercise. Getting data into the data warehouses, the projects were talked about in months and not weeks. And it wasn't really keeping up to the same level of speed that the business were expecting. So these tools came onto the market and they did something really well. They could take data out of the data warehouses. You could query the data. It didn't take 5 minutes like you could do on sort of the legacy data warehousing system. You got a instantaneous response. You could get questions to your answers really, really fast. It was also very easy to ingest data. You could even start doing data blending and in a way kind of circumventing the data warehouse. So that was a lot of the early value pitches that, you don't have to wait for your data warehouse project to finish. Start using this tool today and you can build all of that business logic kind of like inside of your dashboard and you can deploy something really, really fast. And this was highly successful. These businesses grew very, very large and are still around to this day. And then we fast forward a little bit again. And now we're actually kind of coming back into the history repetition cycle again. So now we're actually looking at sort of the rise of the data warehousing movement again, or the return more likely, but without sort of the cubes. No longer do we have to pick and choose which data should go into the data warehouse, because data warehouses and data storage or data lakes or whatever you want to call it these days, they scale very nicely. You drag a slider on some web interface and all of a sudden you have 15 more servers. And now all of a sudden storage doesn't cost any money anymore and so on and so forth. So we can save any type of data we want to into our systems. So these systems are coming back again and becoming more and more popular. The underlying idea behind consolidated data or data warehouses hasn't really changed in the last 40 years. It's still very much the same, but we made a leap in technology and a leap in scale and driven costs down, which is again making these solutions very, very appealable. For a few different reasons as well. There are more data consumers today than there were maybe 10 or 15 years ago. 10, 15 years ago, you went to SAP, you went to Oracle or IBM, you got an enterprise license agreement and you bought everything. You got the database, you got the data warehouse, you got the ETL tool, and you got an analytics tool, and you bought into the entire stack. These days, you probably don't have one BI tool anymore. You probably have 5. You probably even have data scientists lurking around somewhere. You probably have some static dashboard or static reporting tool that just generates reports. So there are more and more people within businesses today that is actually making use of data. So the need for actually having all of that data and having all of that, common definition of information in one place is becoming more and more valuable. And we're buying even more systems today. If you had an HR system before, now you probably have a benefit system. You probably have an equity system if you're doing share equity, for example, within your company, and so on and so forth. So we're accumulating even more data, we're gathering even more data, and we're consuming even more data from different areas. And I would say a large kind of shift in the industry as well is that it's no longer a one-stop shop. Most of these tools and systems has moved into a best of breed type of approach, where you actually can, you can buy the data warehouse from Snowflake, you can buy the ETL or ELT tool from somebody else. You can pick and choose 5 different visualization or analytics tools and stick on top of it. And you can pick and choose what matches your situation within your business at that given point in time. So no longer do you have to buy a software and then, sit around with it for the next 10 or 15 years. And this has kind of like really taken off when we look at data warehousing. So infrastructure, storage, and compute has all kind of like gone through this repetition cycle and come full circle again, or starting the next circle. But what's kind of going on with analytics then? Because we haven't really seen the repetition cycle come full circle yet within analytics. Because if you look at sort of the search of the analytics tools back in 2005, 2007, they were solving problems like, yeah, we can't query the data warehouse because it's too slow. So we'll take the data out of the data warehouse and we query it in memory, or we build some query engine on top of it on flat files to kind of like get the speed up. But the performance issues is no problem anymore. Data warehousing and data lakes are performant enough to actually query directly. So we don't need to move data around anymore. Actually getting data into these centralized storage solutions aren't that slow anymore. Sure, data projects are still complex, and you're still sitting around debating what a customer is and data definitions and so on and so forth. But the technology and the tools aren't in the way of actually having that conversation and driving those projects anymore. So before, what could have taken a year or 2 years to get data more up and running in the data warehouse, you're down to maybe a week or 2. It is really, really fast these days. And no longer can you actually circumvent the data warehouse. Because when you do have so many more consumers of data, you can't spread your business logic in isolated small islands across your company. Because that very cool calculation that you did within your dashboard, there's probably other people that want to be able to consume that calculation and work with that data point somehow and make use of it in other areas and other situations. So a lot of the tools that kind of exist today, they were building and basing their entire software onto problems which don't exist anymore. These aren't problems anymore. So a lot of the things that we sat down when we started building Astrato was that we were thinking about, what's the opportunities for the future? And we've identified a few different core principles that I will share with you. And for me, these have been sort of the core principles, both for Astrato, but if you are embarking on a new business intelligence project or a new data analytics project, these are kind of core principles that I think you should, adhere to, even if you're building something yourself or if you're looking to go shop for something new. So, play the data where it lives. Don't move data around. Gather all of the data that you can, because storage is fairly cheap these days. But don't move it around, and especially do not transform data outside of that centralized storage. But if you do, it should go back into the centralized storage, because the problem of creating sort of small islands of information is that it usually ends there. So we usually like to talk about closing the analytics loop, or don't become sort of the end of the line analytics, because we don't see that happening with analytics anymore. The process doesn't start when you look at a static dashboard. After you looked at the dashboard, you probably made a decision, or you went away and had a discussion with a colleague, or you perhaps even changed your point of view on something. So analytics is not the end of the line when it comes to data anymore. And we expect our tools today to actually interact with other platforms and other tools, right? So if I want to have a conversation about data, I want to have a conversation in the tools that I normally have conversations in, whether it be Teams or Slack. I don't want to have conversation within your tool, right? And in the same way as all the tools should be able to both write back to the centralized data storage as well. So if you want to add comments or, input some data, if you want to build a more operational tool, and so on and so forth. So you want the data to flow back and forth. So coming back to this, play the data where it lives. Don't transform or put business logic inside of data islands, or islands that kind of live in a stream, if you want to quote Dolly Parton. Mostly because that data then becomes dead. It becomes dead data. And if anything, these days, we've spent so much money and so much time on trying to acquire data, clean data, and then store data, that if you don't actually perform analysis on top of that data, it becomes a wasted asset on your balance sheet. So now, rather than later, you should start looking into how to actually get return on that data. And analytics is a very good tool for that. And then kind of closing up the analytics loop. So these have been the core principles when we sat down to design Astrato, and a little bit of a history lesson, because as you get, become an old fart like me, you kind of start appreciating what happened before you and the history. But it also puts sort of the analytics market in a little bit of a context, where we've seen the analytics market that are still really, really good tools, but they were solving problems that don't really exist anymore. The rest of the industry has kind of moved on, and we're hoping that Astrato will be the tool that will kind of jump together with a new way of actually looking at data and centralized storage data. And that was it for me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alex. That was very, very exciting. While we change screens, one little poll to get a little bit of an understanding, what is the current BI tool that you're using or thinking about using? I expect a big click population, but also Tableau to be very, very, very present. In the meantime, I'll make sure, I'm changing now some of my screen. So yeah, very, very interesting. And, this is what kicked us off. I've also seen a very, very interesting set of questions. So I'm very, very excited about the Q&A, and I'll make sure I'll tackle some of that. So thank you for the poll. There's actually a big click population that we've seen, but also Power BI and Tableau, which I find very, very welcoming. So thank you very much. So play the data where it is. Great summary by Alex on the why and why now. So, same 3 key themes, but more from a product-specific angle. We focus on direct query and playing with data. We will never keep and store any data beyond, of course, metadata, no customer data on our tenant. World-class dashboarding analytic experience, whatever is popular in Vizlib, whatever's worked very successfully in Vizlib, we will replicate the success in Astrato, but natively. And one thing, since we're talking about real time, we can now do write back natively, editing data, in writing and inserting data, and introducing more powerful workflows. So then we can turn your analytics apps basically into actually work apps. So in short, a SQL-based analytics layer in the cloud, which places the data where it lives. But let's talk a little bit about the roadmap. I saw a little bit of questions, set analysis. I don't want to call this set analysis because it's a click term, but we're thinking the same way. So the same set analysis experience will be introduced in form of chart filters and other bits. But let me talk about this perhaps a little bit more in detail. So today it starts with Snowflake, right? And Snowflake is, in our view, extremely powerful, sub-second response time, fantastic caching, which means that if one user queries a data point or a chart or a workbook, then all other users from 100 to thousands who query the same results, they'll get them instantaneously. They're not being recalculated. Snowflake is very smart on the caching, and that's how we started. And I think it's wonderful technology. But it doesn't end there. Over time, since we're based on SQL, we can support anything that runs SQL. So over time, you will see data lakes come into the mix, maybe also other vendors, and so on. So this is hopefully we will be able to serve entirely SQL analytics market in a very, very mid to long term size. So do get excited, even if you're not using Snowflake, this might be interesting to you. From a visualization experience, you're familiar with it. You're familiar with the cadence of Vizlib releasing new stuff in a very, very fast and regular way. That will also occur within Astrato, rich and meaningful visualization, so you can communicate the data the way you want. Full customization, full control. And that also goes beyond to rich set of control and write back objects. So you can move from static read-only dashboards to actual workbooks and data-driven analytics that you can act upon it. So the whole combination of no code and data analytics merged into one big, powerful platform, which you can then design with nearly nice, good-looking flows that allows you to apply guided analytics, triggering, calling other systems, and basically introducing workflow elements into your data analytics app within this. So in short, I'm giving you this very, very heavy slide, which has all the information. I want you to look at it and see if one of those terms captures your interest, and we can elaborate furthermore in detail in Q&A or reach out to us thereafter. But the thing I want to highlight here the most, and that is interesting, is that on our engine side, we'll be introducing time travel queries. If you're not familiar with Snowflake, Snowflake offers that unique capability to query data sets in a historic time. So you can say today's data set, but give me the version from 10 days ago, 10 days and a half, 30, 90 days ago. We can easily surface that. And the main point being here is not that this is a fantastic capability, but anything that Snowflake will introduce or is introducing, including unstructured data, baked in machine learning models, data science and AI concepts, you automatically get them within Astrato as we surface them within your data visualization and analytics. So do get excited. The combination is really, really unique and lethal in combined. So timelines, I want this. I want to play around with this. I want to get access to this. We're nearly there. Today we are unveiling, but we have been using this already with a select group of adopters, our Vizlib legends, partners, but also some big customers have been testing that together with us since May and have provided valuable feedback. Today, for the first time, we're unveiling it to the public, our aspiration, our ambition, our vision, and the product itself. So we are now working towards general availability by December 2021, where anybody will be able to register, sign up, and use Astrato for up to 5 users. Just like in Vizlib, we don't have a time limit there. We want to give ability for everybody to explore because everybody needs their own time and it takes their own time to get to that point where they see the product in action. And that's what we want to do. No marketing, no sales, test the product on your own, and let it convince you. Now, of course, it will not be perfect at the beginning, but this is a journey. This is not just a journey. This is a whole movement. Play the data where it lives, a modern analytics tool that combines the best from visualization, analytics, workflow, write back, including the power and the scale of the data cloud. And this is where we want you to be part. Get excited and become part of our journey, part of this experience. So from December, you'll be able to try it for your own, for up to 5 users, as already mentioned. But also, if you are a Snowflake customer today, you're using Snowflake, or you know somebody who should be using Astrato because they're using Snowflake, either because you're a partner or you're Snowflake yourselves, do reach out to us. For a select group of people, we are onboarding a leading customer program where we are working very closely with us to make sure that their proof of concept, that their proof of value is successful. So if you're interested with working at Astrato today, right now, reach out to us. Other than that, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter. Be excited. We are heavily investing in this. We're all in. I couldn't believe any more in a vision of Astrato than anything else. So with this, join us, part of this journey, and become a fan, become an Astrato believer, and test the product on your own. So with this, we thank you extensively for your attention so far. And there's a lot of questions that have been fired that we want to answer because they have a repetitive pattern and very easy ones. So with this, I'm moving over to the Q&A. And while we're waiting for people to write down what they've written on their notes, we will fire another poll, which is the question of who here is moving the data to the cloud. Is it an active project? Is it happening? And if you're moving data to the cloud, how are you thinking about your data analytics and visualization solution? So with this, we're going to give this a minute, and I'm going through the questions. I see some of them have been answered. We'll try to answer all of them directly. But in the meantime, let's give this one question. So what one actually is a very, very fair one. I'll go directly into this. This is by actually our partners. So Trey Smith, if that's okay. How would you compare this versus Tableau's live connection? And this is a very valid point. Tableau also does live query. Power BI also does live query. Qlik doesn't really, with the exception of combining this with Stitch, which is also relatively limited in terms of its flexibility, but powerful. Now, the thing is that our differentiation to Tableau, to Power BI and Qlik is that we fundamentally believe that replicating data and extracting data into a BI tool is not the right way forward. So yes, Tableau offers this as a feature, so does Power BI, but in our view, live query is not a feature. In our view, with Astrato, live query and direct query is a fundamental core foundation of our product that we revolve everything around this. So our key differentiator is that for them, it's a feature. For us, this is all in. The product is based upon live query. And with this, there are little nitty-gritty things such as we are optimized for live query, whereas for them, there's also still some business logic. The setup is much more advanced and simple. And you've seen in my example, how we've made it from Snowflake and data to meaningful analysis with just a few clicks. Sharing the results, that was a very interesting one. And I thank you for that. In the meantime, let's go for different other questions. Alex, there's one around pricing. How much is going to cost? Do you want to answer that?
Sure. So leave it to the technical guy to answer pricing questions, because then you're going to get the truthful answer. So we're still tweaking $1 up or down. The range that we're currently looking for is to have a simplified pricing model and per user pricing. And we're targeting in the range of what a Tableau viewer license would cost on a per month basis, but for all of our users. But the system is always going to be free for the first 5. So there's no credit card required. You can sign up, there won't be a salesperson hassling you, hopefully, as you start using the product. So no need for an upfront investment to get started. You're free to evaluate perpetually for free forever up until 5 users.
Yeah, one addition I would like to make is that we will kind of offer but in steps. So per seat pricing at the kind of benchmark of Power BI or Tableau Viewer. But we will offer the ability to take a seat and use it as a fungible token and use a seat as a consumption-based token for example, something like 1,000 or X amount of views, for example. So you don't count users, but you count actually utilization and consumption. So yeah, a little bit closer than to Snowflake on that consumption-based model, if that makes sense. But every customer, and we know that from our experience working at Vislit, every customer has a different flavor around how they like to. So we'll offer both, and people can change it even dynamically potentially, which is an interesting thing, right? Public dashboards will become a thing, or is becoming a thing with a data cloud. So and if you publish a dashboard, you don't have user accounts, you have number of views or page views. So that's an interesting one. Alerting is included. It's in a long-term view. So basically, when aggregation in Snowflake exceeds a certain threshold, we will fire off an alert, classic email or even within the dashboard. So that is definitely something on our more longer-term roadmap, but not difficult to implement. With playing the data where it is in real-time access to Snowflake, these things are relatively simple.
And it opens up a lot of very interesting opportunities. And alerting for me is not that interesting, to be honest. It's what you do with the alert and in which context you're actually getting it. So for us, we can do things like when you, as a user, log in the morning, run a specific measure connected to a specific data view, and that passes a threshold value, send a little notification to the user. So whenever your salesperson logs in the morning, he gets a little notification saying like, hey, you sold for 10K yesterday. Congratulations, thumbs up or thumbs down if that was good or bad. So, putting that real-time data into the context that you currently are as a user. But then, of course, you can do the traditional thing of scheduling alerts and have them delivered in different areas and so on and so forth.
Oh. While we go through the questions, this is kind of our dev cluster unstable. I wasn't allowed to demo from here, but I do want to show a little bit our join logic, which I've co-designed. So obviously, I'm very biased and passionate about it. But generally, we want to make the experience from data to dashboard as smooth and as simple as possible, so anyone could do this. If I now reselect the same data and go to my data view, I can now click on suggested joins. And based on the names, we provide approximation, but you can easily just say, oh, I want this one and this one. And that's it. I applied them, and they're actually, even visualized. So you can even see them here. So we're working on that. Very excited, but it takes one step, makes it even more simpler on that. Cool. So write back is on our long term. So it's not that it's difficult. It's actually not that difficult, to be honest. The thing with write back is that typically we saw with Vislit customers that before you use write back, you first want to have other things implemented. So we prioritized it different. So write back is typically something we see that comes at a mid to later part of an analytics journey. So, but it's, we've already scoped it out. And again, we have it very successfully in Vislit. So we're just gonna, use it how it works very, very nicely over there and just port it over. So that is kind of generally our approach with anything on Astrato. So one question is, where can you run Astrato? Which clouds and regions, Alex? Now you got a technical one.
So right now, you can pick and choose. We make sure that it's performant and stable enough. We're currently operating within GCP, and you can, and of course, we'll load balance across the regions to suit wherever you want to deploy. But we operate in GCP, and you won't be able to move between different vendors. We are, of course, monitoring performance between the different data centers and data center providers. Or if you want to talk history, the different mainframe computers that are called Amazon, Google or Microsoft. And there's no big latency issues so far between those, even across regions.
Cool. We're almost in time. So last question: Can you combine visualizations from different dashboards with different connections, Alex?
Not across connections at this stage. Currently, it is you can do it across databases. So if it sits within one instance of your data warehouse, then we can query across multiple schemas and databases and perform the joins that way. But if you're looking to do merging two data sets across, from two different providers, be it Databricks and Snowflake, for example, no, we don't support that out of the gate.
But that goes into data blending. So as on long term, we will be able to do so. And pinboards will also be part of it. We'll be able to select different dashboards and like kind of mesh them up together in one view. Last one is, what are Astrato and Qlik extensions? Well, why not, right? Like there's cross-pollination, right? So once we have Astrato up and running, we will, and embeddability is in place, we will consider about taking Astrato objects and, bringing them as an extension within the Qlik, because then potentially Qlik customers can combine what they have with a live query data connection. That's our midterm, but it is possible. And, luckily for us, since we do both, not much effort actually. So that is something that we are thinking about, but we haven't yet prioritized. So so with this, I thank you very much. There have been a couple of more questions. We follow up individually. Would love to have perhaps a more deeper discussion with you guys if you're interested. We can show you the product more. We can discuss our roadmap and our vision more. Right now, with this, I thank you very much for the attendance. It has been very, very exciting to show this to you for the very first time. Reach out to us and stay followed, and speak to you all very soon. Thank you very much.